Well, I did it. I was able to get the entire month of July content made, filmed, and uploaded, all while going through lots and lots of testing for my surgery on the 14th. This video, I believe, is going to be coming out on the 25th. So I am roughly 11 days into my recovery at this point. Hopefully it's going well. I don't know. I haven't had the surgery yet because this is filmed way in advance. Anywho, let's talk about that tight, squeaky feeling that some foamy face washes leave behind. That's not your skin being extra clean. A lot of the time, that's your cleanser being too aggressive on your face. Most of us still want that morning cleanser to feel nice and fresh. We want foam. We want that clean, awake feeling, maybe even a little cooling tingle at the end there. My favorite store-bought face cleanser gives me all of that, especially that tingle. I love that part. But we don't want our skin feeling tight 5 minutes later either. So in this video, I'm going to be making a DIY morning facial cleanser that gives you that fresh, foamy, citrus mint kind of wash, but with a more balanced surfactant system, a realistic pH target, and a skin feel that makes more sense. A lot of people think that the problem with foaming cleansers is the foam itself, but that's not really the issue. Foam can feel fresh, clean, and satisfying, especially in a morning face wash. The problem starts when the cleansing system is built too aggressively for the face. That's when you rinse, towel off, and your skin feels tight, squeaky, or overwashed. And for a long time, that squeaky feeling was marketed almost like proof that the cleanser worked. But a face wash does not need to leave your skin feeling tight to do its job. For this formula, I still wanted that fresh morning cleanser experience. I wanted the foam, the citrus mint feel, and the fun visual of the beads. I just didn't want the finished cleanser to feel harsh or stripped after rinsing. When a cleanser is too strong for the way that you want it to feel on the face, the consequence is usually the after feel. It might look fine in the bottle, it might foam beautifully, and it might rinse quickly, but the skin feel afterwards tells you a lot. That tight, dry, squeaky feeling is not the goal for this type of cleanser. For a morning face wash, I want the product to feel refreshing while I'm using it, but I also want the rinse off to feel balanced. This is why I don't formulate a foaming cleanser just by chasing bigger bubbles. The active cleansing level matters. The surfactant blend matters. The refatting support matters. The final viscosity matters. Even the pH matters, especially when the formula includes a vitamin C derivative like sodium ascorbyl phosphate. So the consequence of ignoring the formula structure is that you may end up with something that looks like a fun, fresh facial cleanser, but feels too aggressive once you actually use it. So the goal of this formula is simple: fresh and foamy, not stripped. This cleanser is still meant to feel like a morning cleanser. It has that bright citrus direction, a light cooling feel, a pumpable gel texture, and the gold bursting beads for that fun visual. But underneath that sensory experience, the formula is built more intentionally. The cleansing system is balanced instead of overloaded. The main cleansing ASM sits around 9.6%, so we still get the foam, but the cleansing strength stays in a more reasonable range for the face. The pH target is also intentional because of the sodium ascorbyl phosphate, and the viscosity is adjusted at the end after the full formula is together, so the finished cleanser has the right texture before the beads go in. That's the real lesson here. A dupe-inspired formula should not just copy the look of a product. It should make sense at the bench, make sense on your skin, and give the user the experience that you are actually trying to create. Before we start making this, I want you to notice the way that the formula is built. This isn't just about making a cleanser foam. The goal is to control the cleansing strength, round out that skin feel, support the viscosity, keep the pH where it needs to be, and still make the product feel fresh and fun to use. That's why the structure matters so much here. The formula has to work as a cleanser, but it also has to feel appropriate for the face. If you want that full written formula, the detailed procedure, and the notes that you can follow along with while you make this for yourself, check out the Patreon perks that are going to be coming up next on the screen. But for now, let's get into the formula and start making this. All right, let's just get to it. I have a different angle today. You guys let me know what you think about this. I don't love it. Anywho, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build the water phase of this facial cleanser. This is where I want the formula organized before the surfactants ever go in, because once surfactants are added, mixing gets a whole lot more annoying, and we have to be much more careful about foam and trapped air. So I'm starting with distilled water, as I always do, and I'm holding a little bit of that back. I have 2 little beakers here that I took like 8% each of the water portion, because those are going to be used later to dissolve some of our actives that we have. We're going to do that separately so they can go into the batch smoothly instead of clumping or floating around. So next in, we're going to have some dice. Let's see how am I going to do this now, because this is totally different. I usually go up here because my camera is usually up there. So I'll go up with my ingredients. So now I got to get used to this. Let's go. I guess there's good. All right. So disodium EDTA. This is going to go in early because I want the chelator completely dissolved before the formula gets more complex. This helps to tie up trace metals from the water, raw materials, or even your equipment, which gives the cleanser better stability and preservation support. So disodium EDTA. It is 66% humidity in my lab today, which is awful. So some of these powders are going to cling. Anyhow, moving on. So then I'm going to bring in some sorbitol as well as some propanediol. Let's get the right, there you go. In a rinse off cleanser, these are not here to behave like a leave-on moisturizer. They're here to help soften the after feel, so your skin feels clean after rinsing and not tight or squeaky or overwashed. So this is our sorbitol. And then our propanediol 1,3. Start stirring this a little bit. And this is where we're going to start our pH adjustments. We're going to be adding some sodium citrate and a small amount of raw citric acid. So we've got our sodium citrate. And then a little bit of some citric acid. These are part of your buffer system, and that matters because the formula contains sodium ascorbyl phosphate. So I'm not trying to turn this into a low pH acid cleanser, but I'm going to build the pH direction into the formula right from the beginning. So let's go ahead and get that sodium citrate in. Citric acid. And give that all a good stir. All right, so we still do have some clumps on the bottom. You can go ahead and pop this on top of your hot plate or your water bath, just to help dissolve some of those powders on the bottom. Or you can just stand here and stir like I'm doing. Just checking to see any of these little powders left. All right, groovy. Let's move on. So the thickener in this phase is hydroxypropyl methyl cellulose. There we go. Good angle without the light. Here. You're going to get some light. Good enough. This is awkward, you guys. I have to say, with this camera angle, this is awkward. Anyhow, this is also called HPMC, and this is what starts giving the cleanser that gel body. And it also helps to support the beads so that they don't just sink straight to the bottom. This is the part where patience really matters. So I'm just going to sprinkle this in while I'm mixing it and letting it fully hydrate. If you rush this part, you can end up with little polymer clumps that are a pain in the neck to work out later on. So I'm going to go ahead and just sprinkle this in around the surface, and then we can start stirring. All right, so we are just going to allow this the time that it needs to fully hydrate. Just leave it alone and let it go. Okay, I let this sit for roughly about an hour to let that HPMC fully wet out and hydrate and do its thing. And so you just want to give it a gentle stir, look around, see if there's any clumps anywhere. And there isn't. They're fully dissolved. So we are ready to go to our next portion. In the meantime, while that's been sitting there, and we'll get to this in a second, but I did go ahead and start dispersing 2 ingredients that are going to go into our cool down so that they could be completely ready to go when we are ready to go. So once your base here is smooth and it's fully hydrated, let's start building that cleansing system. So the main foaming cleanser here is going to be Bioturge AS40. There we go. Which is sodium C1416 olefin sulfonate. And this one gives us the fresh, bubbly face wash feel, but the level is controlled so that the finished cleanser makes better sense for a facial skin. So we're just going to go ahead and get that in. Kind of try to get it down the side of your beaker. Or if you don't want to do that, you can go ahead and just get it down your spatula like this. Just trying to minimize foam and bubbles as much as possible. A gentle stir. Okay, to round that out, I'm going to be using cocamidal propyl hydroxysultane. There we go. This is a co-surfactant. It helps support the foam. It helps with viscosity, and it makes the cleansing system feel less one-dimensional than relying on the stronger foaming cleanser all by itself. So again, try to get this down the side of your beaker, or at a minimum, just like kind of pour it down your spatula. Give it a gentle stir. Again, trying not to kick up bubbles. All right, next we're going to have decylglucoside, and this is going to give us the non-ionic cleanser in the blend. I wanted that extra little balance here because a good facial cleanser should not just be about making the biggest foam possible. It needs to cleanse well, but it still needs to feel reasonable after rinsing it off. And I am kicking up bubbles here. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Not doing too bad though. There's not too many bubbles. So after we have added all of those surfactants, this brings the main cleansing ASM to about 9.6%. So we still get a foaming cleanser, but we're keeping the cleansing strength in a more reasonable range for the face. The average active surfactant matter for facial cleansers typically ranges between 3 and 10, and we're at about 9.6. So after we give that a good blend, we're going to go ahead and add PEG7 glycerol cocoate. This is for the softer rinse off feel. This is a refatting support ingredient. It's not the main cleanser. It's here to help take the edge off of that squeaky stripped feeling that some foaming cleansers can leave behind. At this point, the whole goal is getting, gentle mixing going on here. Trying your very, very best not to kick up bubbles. So once the surfactants are in your beaker, aggressive mixing just gives you foam, bubbles, and trapped air. That does not help the formula. Try to avoid that. Just going to leave this alone for a little bit. Put this off to the side. We're going to bring in our solubilizer. This is PEG40 hydrogenated castor oil. And this is going to help carry the menthol and the fragrance into the water-based cleanser instead of just leaving them floating around separately. So I'm going to pop this on the hot plate momentarily. But before I do that, I am going to add the menthol crystals to it. These are here for that fresh, tingly, cooling feel that I absolutely love about my store-bought cleanser. But these need to be dissolved first. So I'm going to just warm up the PEG40 slightly, and the menthol, I'm going to sprinkle these on the top and just melt that all together until the crystals disappear. So I'm using the menthol at a very low percentage because this is, after all, a product for the face. If you'd rather not use them, just omit them altogether. But again, that cooling tingle is the main thing that I love about my store-bought cleanser. And it is in their Inky list, so I am using it. So I'm just going to sprinkle my menthol crystals on top of the PEG40. And then I'm going to go ahead and pop that on top of my hot plate and melt that all down. Okay, once the menthol blend cools back down to below 100, then we can go ahead and add our fragrance. Make sure that you check the flash point too. I'm going to be using lemon sugar fragrance oil. This can go right in that mix, and this gives us the citrus part of the cleanser without using actual lemon essential oil, which can be really harsh on facial skin. Plus, it's highly phototoxic. So we're going to mix the fragrance oil right in with that PEG 40 and menthol crystals so that everything can be solubilized nicely. Give it a good mix. The combination of these two is divine. Lemon sugar with that little bit of mint from the menthol crystals. And hopefully this will give my face that really, really nice tingle that I just love about my store-bought stuff. All right, now that that pre-mix is all ready to roll, we can go ahead and add that into the batch. And give that a gentle stir. All right, now we're ready for the first cool down active. Let me go ahead and uncover that. This is going to be our sodium ascorbyl phosphate, which is a highly stable and gentle form of vitamin C. I'm going to give that a little bit of a stir. It also has a big influence on our pH strategy because the ingredient is much happier closer to neutral than it would be in a nice low pH cleanser. It likes a neutral range. So we pre-dissolved that. Remember the water portion that I took out in the beginning. Then I have the SAP is in powder form, and then I go ahead and reconstitute that in a portion of that water. So we can go ahead and add that now. Going to mix a little bit more vigorously just to make sure that we're incorporating everything. It's going to take some time to incorporate everything. I'm just keeping my spatula real low to the bottom of the beaker. All right, next we're going to put in some vitamin E acetate powder. This is handled separately too. Since this is water dispersible, you work that into a nice smooth dispersion before adding it. So again, this was a portion of that water that I took out right from the beginning, and then I have this vitamin E acetate powder, added that to that water portion to start dissolving for a nice premix. I don't want to see powder specks, grit, or floating particles. And if this little premix isn't smooth, just keep working it before it goes anywhere near that full batch. But again, this has been sitting here for an hour, so we're good to go. There's no powder clumps or chunks on the bottom of this beaker. That's important. All right, start giving that a good stir. After you get this good and mixed up, if you wanted to add color, which I am going to do, now would be the time. I'm going to be adding some FDC yellow number 5 water soluble dye, just a couple of drops. Right, let's see where that gets us. Ooh, that's beautiful. Oh, perfect. It's just about the color of the one that I currently use. That's the store-bought version. So at this stage, the formula is built, but the viscosity is not finished yet. Before thickening, though, I can go ahead and take the pH just to see where the batch is sitting, and that gives me the information that I'm going to need, but that's not the final adjustment point. So we're going to pour that into a little beaker here, and we can test the pH now just to see what's happening, but we're not going to make any adjustments until after all the ingredients are in. Let's put it there. Maybe you guys can see it. I'll pick it up when it's done. We're approaching 8. We're at about 7.8 right now. Yep, it's about holding there. So it's about 7.8. right now, just to give us an idea of where we're sitting. So now we can go ahead with our Liquid Germal Plus, which is our preservative, and this is a water-based product, so proper preservation is not optional. You hear me say that a lot because people think that they don't need to preserve certain things. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So mix this in carefully so it gets evenly distributed without introducing more air into the batch. This is our Liquid Germal Plus preservative. And the thickener that I am using today, if you want to, if the bubbles are really bothering you, give it a quick spritz with some alcohol. Just a really quick right on the top. It'll get rid of all those bubbles for you. The thickener that I'm going to be using today is Liquid Crofix. Start off small, you guys. Start off at 2% and work your way up. I'm starting off at 2.5% today, and I'll probably work my way up from there. This goes in near the end because surfactants, solubilizers, fragrances, actives, preservatives, and pH can all influence the final viscosity. If I thicken this too early, like before I added all my ingredients, then I may end up just chasing the texture later, especially with fragrance, a good majority of which will absolutely thin your batch out. So be sure that everything is in the beaker before you start thickening it. Okay, so the Crofix is going to go in slowly. The batch gets mixed gently, and then I give it time to build before deciding what the final texture really looks like. This part takes time. Give it that time that it needs. You can feel it as you're stirring. You can feel the viscosity changing. But again, start off small and work your way up. This was 2, and I usually start at 2%, and that's what I tell people, to start at 2% and work your way up from there. Today I started at 2.5% just because I knew that I would need at least the 2.5. But right now, I'm not going to start chasing the texture. I'm going to do what I always do, and I'm going to leave this overnight. I'm going to come back tomorrow and see what the texture is looking like, and then I will make my decisions from there. But I can already see this is a beautiful texture already. I do want it a little bit thicker than that. And I'll also recheck the pH tomorrow one final time. If I need to make further adjustments with the viscosity, I will do that. And then I will recheck the pH and make any adjustments using my citric acid if I want to bring that down a little bit. I'm aiming for a 6.9 to a 7.2 because remember that SAP likes a neutral. And right now we're at about 7.8. All right. I will bring you guys back tomorrow. Okay, it is the next day, and I added 0.5% more of the Crofix to get it to the viscosity that I wanted, and I also checked the final pH and made my final adjustments. This is how beautiful this turned out. The viscosity is great. Exactly what I wanted. It's not too thin. It's not too thick. This will be good for a pump bottle. The very last ingredient that we do want to add is our gold bursting beads. And these are for that morning burst inspired look and sensory feel. These aren't meant to be harsh or scrubby. They just go in at the very end and get folded in gently. You don't want to use like high shear or aggressive mixing. I just want these beads dispersed, not broken apart. I got these from Brambleberry. These are bursting beads. So just go ahead and dump all of those in and then give it a gentle mix. And at this point, because we have the viscosity right where we want it, these beads should be really nicely suspended. I'm just going to fold them in, trying not to kick up bubbles again. As you can see, all of the foam that was on the top from yesterday has disappeared because I let this sit overnight and let it do its thing. It also turned translucent. It's not opaque any longer. See how those beads are suspended now? They're not all just sinking to the bottom. And so the finished product now can go into a regular cleanser pump bottle. This is a medium thick gel cleanser with the beads in there. So the package has to make sense for that type of texture. So let's just go ahead and get some into our bottle here. You can really see now how nice those beads are suspended. All right, and we're just going to get our pump in. Pop that up. And we're going to do a little demo here. So you can see in the bottle how nicely those beads are suspended. No matter which way I turn it, it's not just all sitting on the bottom. It's suspended throughout, which is fantastic. But let me show you what this actually looks like when it's used. So let's go ahead and pump some out. So you can see the texture first. It has that medium thick gel consistency. So it's not running all over the place, but it still moves nice and easy through the pump. There's a little bit of staying powder with that gel texture. It's not just water. And when I spread it out, you can see that slip right away. It has that smooth glide, which is what I wanted for this type of a facial cleanser. Look at how nicely that smooths out on your skin. So now when I add a little bit of water and I work it through my hands, that lather comes up nice and soft and fresh. I mean, look at that. I literally had 2 seconds worth of rubbing. It's not heavy. It's not really dense foam, but it's not thin or weak either. It's just lovely. It has that bubbly morning cleanser feel to it. The beads give it that fun morning burst inspired look, but they're not meant to feel scratchy or aggressive by any means. This lather, by the way, is unbelievable. But those beads should feel like part of the cleanser experience and not like you're scrubbing your face with grit. So let's go ahead and rinse this off. And the goal is, nice, clean, fresh rinse off, not tight or squeaky. You can see right away, as soon as I add more water to rinse this off, it's a beautiful, clean rinse. There's not a big, huge, thick residue happening here. Look at the foam in there, you guys, just from a couple of pumps. I mean, this is insane, the amount of foam. The menthol in this gives that a very nice, light, cooling finish, and that lemon sugar fragrance keeps it bright and fresh. But neither one of those should take over the cleanser. That's why the thumbnail says this feels better. I actually used this last night in my face care routine, and I am obsessed. This turned out exactly as I wanted it to. Here's what we learned today. A foaming facial cleanser does not have to feel tight or squeaky to be effective. The real lesson is that foam is only part of the formula. What matters is how the cleansing system is balanced, where that pH lands, how the viscosity is adjusted, and how the rinse off feels once the product is actually used. So if your cleanser feels too harsh, don't automatically blame the foam. Look at the whole formula. The takeaway from it is this: build the cleanser around the skin feel that you want in the end, not just the bubbles that you want in the sink. If you found this content helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves making skincare. If you're on mobile, you can hype this video. It helps smaller creators like me gain visibility, reach new audiences, and grow my channel. Again, the full written formula for this cleanser is available in the formula library on Patreon. Thank you all for your support. Thanks for hanging out with me today at Creation Station, and I'll see you in the next formulation.